Now, Jason Tatum finished with a plus-minus 36 last night. Now, keep this in mind, folks. That is the worst mark of any game in his career. But it's also the worst of any player in a finals game in the 2 decades the metric has been recorded. Not good. And what's interesting is he had 28 points. So you look at those numbers, and it looks like, oh, man, he had a great game. I don't know what you're talking about. But that plus-minus cannot be ignored. Wendy, you were at the game. What happened to Tatum last night?
Well, he turned the ball over, I believe, 4 or 5 times, and that has been the hallmark of when the Celtics struggle. They gave up 33 points off of turnovers, which is second most in a finals game in the last 25 years. And Tatum was on the court for a lot of those turnovers, which is why that plus-minus is so poor. But as he prepares for Game 3, he needs to prepare for dealing with Andrew Wiggins. In this game, really the first 2 games, the Warriors have resisted switching when he's got the ball. They really just want Wiggins on him. When he's had a smaller defender on him, he's frankly cooked them. If you go back and look at the threes he hit last night, he was 6 and 9 on threes. He had smaller defenders on him. The Warriors recognize they need to leave Wiggins on him, and he has not done a great job against Wiggins. So he's going to have to solve that a little bit. They're going to have to run some actions that can get him some more freedom, and he's going to take care of the ball better. But I absolutely think he's capable. He hasn't put his best foot forward yet, and I believe he will.
All right, he's a superstar. And sometimes I think because he's a superstar, CJ, we tend to grade him more harshly than we would grade other people. You've played against him many times. What did you see in yesterday's game that gave you pause, made you concerned? From Tatum.
I was just concerned about the turnovers and him settling. He was settling more often than he probably should have throughout the game. He had some switches where he was, being guarded by Jordan Poole or Steph Curry. Understand the double team's going to come. Sometimes you have to embrace the double team. JJ talked about it earlier, not having a plan, not understanding what he wants to accomplish, not manipulating defense, similar to the way CP manipulated our series, right? Sometimes you're driving the pass. I think he has to get more into that mentality early, see what happens when you get into the lane. But more oftentimes than not, people thought he didn't play particularly well offensively, but he had 13 assists. I think he can get that balance of 30 points, 7 to 8 assists, and that's when they're going to win games, and the game flow will be easier for him.
Okay, is there a benchmark you see with him? Is there something you see with Tatum that you need to see, JJ, for him to really be utilizing all his gifts to give the Celtics a fighting chance?
It comes down to decision making, and I talked about this a ton before the series starts, and it starts with the turnovers. It starts with having a plan. It starts with being able to recognize defensive coverages and get your teammates involved. I thought he was great. I thought his shot selection in Game 1 was fine. Yeah. It was off shooting night. It was fine, but he got his teammates involved. Of any player in this series that has taken 5 or more shots, according to Second Spectrum, he's got the worst shot quality in this series. So, and it really, to me, Wendy brought up the point he knocked down some threes over smaller defenders. There were multiple times where he had a smaller defender on him, and he settled for what I thought was a tough contested long 2, or he got into the paint and tried the James Harden rip through. It didn't work. He threw up a really difficult shot. So it goes down to decision making off the dribble, the passing, the turnovers. The Celtics can't withstand these high turnover nights against the Warriors. The Warriors are too good off of these turnovers.
You've been saying it game after game. Yep. They cannot turn the ball over like this. And it sounds like for Tatum, it's an issue of growing as a superstar, making those better decisions. Now, the other thing, Wendy, that really stood out to me in this game was that Draymond-Jaylen Brown altercation. And when you look at that, that became sort of a center, a touch point of this game. What did you make of that situation as you were there at the game?
Well, the thing about it is that I think Jason Tatum's got to do some film study here. You got 2 of the most cerebral players I've ever covered sitting on the set with you. Jason Tatum has got to let Jaylen Brown go here.
Oh. Let
Jaylen Brown get the double technical. Do not pull him away. He's making an instinct to protect his teammate. You got to realize that Draymond has a tech. And the thing about the NBA, this isn't a published rule. Guys like Draymond Green, Luka Doncic, Rasheed Wallace back in his day, the threshold for them getting their first technical is very low. The referees almost come out halfway to a tech on those players. But the threshold for their second technical is very high, and it is extraordinarily high in a playoff setting. Nobody's more aware of it than guys who are used to playing a majority of their games with 1 technical sitting on the books. So when Draymond gets his first tech, which will happen again in this series, all hands on deck to bait him into the second tech. Play his game back at him.
CJ, you're smiling. You guys are both smiling on this one. Go ahead.
I mean, you're right, and I think that's where youth comes into play.
So he should have let him go. He should have let Jaylen Brown go.
You let Jaylen Brown get the technical, or Grant Williams comes into the game. And when you're having those altercations where they're pushing, you escalate a little bit more, understanding that you can get technical. You're eliminating the heart and soul of the Warrior team. Obviously, Steph is the universe, but Draymond is the sun at times, right? He initiates the offense, he rebounds, he's the energy, he's the defender, he's the one that's all over the court kind of manipulating. You see the Warriors offense without him when he was hurt this season. It was completely different. If Draymond gets ejected out of this game, Boston wins going away, and now they end up going back home up 2-0. But I think moral of the story is Tatum didn't want Jaylen getting involved, but in this instance, if this was Dame and I would have said one of us has to take this technical if he gets in our face, because there's a chance that he gets thrown out, and there's a chance that I just get a technical. So who cares?
So if it was you and Dame, you guys would have been like, hands off.
I wouldn't have broke it up until I thought it was getting to the point of no return. You let it go a little bit because the refs are quick to draw, right? It's quick to pull the whistle out, quick to go review because they're watching so much. They're trying to analyze the game. They're trying to analyze the shot quality. Did he get fouled? Did he not get fouled? Guys are manipulating, flopping. So when you have a chance, when I got my 4th foul against the Phoenix Suns, what'd they do? They start running plays for whoever I was guarding. Guys that may not even be a threat offensively because I'm in jeopardy of picking up my 5th foul. If I leave the game, it changes the course of the outcome.
I like that, JJ.
I just want to be clear, Wendy. I wasn't laughing at what you said. I was laughing at the continued replay of Draymond resting his legs on the back of Jaylen Brown's head. It's funny.
Play it again, guys.
No, play it again because he clearly can move his legs to the other side, and he decides to move his legs to the right and just rest them gently on his the back of his head. No, I think Wendy nailed this. Wendy nailed this. Look, the guys he mentioned, Rasheed Wallace, Doncic, Draymond Green, they are demonstrative players. They, Rasheed, Draymond especially, they are instigators. They're on the verge of a tech almost every game, and they know that once that first tech happens, they basically got to punch a guy to get out of the game. I mean, seriously, Draymond is able to toe that line of controversy time and time again, and he's basically daring and challenging the refs to throw him out of the game.
But I want to tell you, Celtics fans are hearing this right now, and they are literally pulling out their hair, saying, how is this fair? How is it fair?
Life isn't fair, Ryan. Life is not fair.
No. I can't believe I'm defending Celtics fans, first of all. But anyway, CJ, I look at this and I wonder if this ends up being a difference maker in this series. Because Draymond, he can toe this line better than anyone. The Celtics don't have someone like that. They got a lot of great defenders, a lot of size, got a lot of defensive skill, but nobody who can agitate like that and push that button. How important is it in this series?
I think it's important, but I think that's the Warrior DNA. That's Draymond's DNA. The Celtics win a different way. Kendrick Perkins says it all the time. A bunch of junkyard dogs. They got some dogs over there. They've been able to win on the road. They've been able to win Game 7s, back against the wall. They just kind of figure things out, led by Ime. They figure things out. Offensively, they're talented. Defensively, one of the better defensive teams that we've seen. Switchability, can guard 1 through 5. Al Horford comes in the game, can guard 1 through 5. I think the biggest thing for the Celtics is that third quarter. If they can figure out that third quarter and be down 15 instead of 34, that's the difference.
I just want to add something just in general about this series and specifically as it relates to the Celtics. We've seen throughout these playoffs their ability to bounce back after these games. We go back to the Milwaukee series. They lose Game 3 by 23. They tie it up in Game 4. They lose Game 5. They win Game 6 and 7. Miami series, they lose Game 5. They win Game 6 and 7. So the idea that the Warriors have somehow figured them out or they have all this momentum, I'm just not buying that theory at all. The Celtics throughout these playoffs have made the necessary adjustments game to game. They've had bounce-back games from Tatum. They've had bounce-back games from Brown and Smart. Like, they are going to figure it out and be in a position to win games in this series.
Okay, Wendy, let me give you the final word. I think we have a second here. Wendy, I'll give you the final word.
Well, here's what I would say after watching the Celtics and Warriors. I'm going to make a prediction. I never, ever make predictions as I can get away with it.
Yes!
The Warriors are 5-0 after playoff losses this year. The Celtics are 6-0. My prediction is this thing is going 7, and it's going to come right down to the wire on a couple of these games, and whoever can execute in the clutch is going to matter. We're not going to have these lopsided fourth quarters. Eventually, it's going to come down to a play or two either way, and it could start happening in Game 3 on Wednesday.
Wow, it's going 7. So, Wendy, who's going to win in 7?
I didn't say that. I just said I was predicting it was going.
Nice try, Ryan. You tried to trap him. I like it. I like it.
Too slick.